when I was little, you got me a gift that hung on my doorknob forever that said, "Oh my God, I'm just like my mother." And I'm curious why you bought that for me.
I have no idea.
You had some idea. So I guess for starters, my baby is 2 months old. How old is
And my baby?
Okay, maybe let's talk about how old your baby is.
37.
Oh boy. How has your relationship changed with me since I've become a mom?
I've thought about that for a long time. Long before you were a mom, because I felt it with my own mother. And my mother and I used to have this discussion. Is that when you don't have children, you're still solely my baby, my child. Once you do have a child, then you are no longer just my baby, but you're a mother to someone else. And that puts us, I'm going to start talking about it puts us on the same plane. We're both mothers.
Yeah.
And so our relationship becomes not only a parent to a child, but peers.
Yeah.
And that's very special.
That is very special. I mean, it's funny to me because on one hand, you are my best friend, but I will always look up to you, like that. To be on the same plane is almost an impossibility because you're so much bigger to me than that.
But at the same time, you can still roll your eyes at me.
I don't roll my. You told me when I was young never to roll my eyes. It was interesting. It reminds me of that. I was at the grocery store one time, and I think someone had just passed. Someone had just died, and there was a lot of conversation about communicating love to the people who you love. And I remember, next to the apples or something like that, and telling you just how much I love you, and I hope you know how much I love you. And your response to me was that you do know how much I love you, and that I will never know how much you love me until I have a kid.
That's true.
I don't think I love you that much yet. Is it terrible?
No, it grows, sweetie, it grows. He'll take first place. Don't worry, he will.
Oh gosh. Yeah.
And then you know what? You'll worry about it again when you have a second child. If you.
What do you mean? Worry about?
Well, I love the second one as much as I love the first.
Oh really?
Oh yeah. Ask any mother who's got more than one.
Oh, that's so interesting.
And in the beginning, you worry because do I love him as much as the first one? And you do.
How would you describe our communication style?
I think it's pretty upfront. Certainly you're with me.
Oh, no.
I think I'm possibly a little bit more careful with you sometimes because I really try not to condescend, not to say more than I should. So I always have to factor those things in.
I definitely tell you everything.
I know. Sometimes too much.
I don't hold back. Can you recall a time in your life where you felt like you most needed me?
I most needed your love and support and affection when my parents, each of them, died. I knew it's something I had to go through, but having that continuity of generation to generation made it much easier.
Did I do okay?
You did great. You did wonderfully.
I just speak so much to your teaching. You taught us, you brought us there,
and you went to his funeral. You were only little, but you went to his funeral. No, it's important. You have to learn to go through all those things from the time you're little because it's a natural part of life.
Yeah.
So I always want to put you into experiences that sometimes other people would hesitate to do, but I pushed you right in there.
I mean, that's so important. It's so important because the majority of life is hard, and to shield anyone from that is a disservice.
Right.
And it's so interesting also when you think about giving condolences for someone's parent, you talk about how wonderful the child is because of the parent.
Right.
And then the child feels special and appreciated in light of the parents' parenting.
Right. And you will carry that on with yours.
Yeah. Oh God. I need you all the time. Sometimes
you're doing all right by yourself.
sometimes more so than other times. But in 2017, actually right before I came up with Ohnut, I was really sad. I was in a really unhealthy relationship, and I called you almost every day in tears, angry, sad, devastated, and you never told me what to do. You always listened, you absorbed, you redirected, you gave me tough love. I called you so often, you tried everything.
I wanted to say, leave. Just leave.
And finally, at one point, you said, "Shit or get off the pot."
Did I say that?
Yeah, of course you did. So I shat. No, I got off the pot. I shat and got off the pot.
You did both.
That was a time where I didn't have a lot of confidence in myself. And I got that confidence from you because I couldn't find my way, and you held my hand to help me get there.
It's very hard as a parent to know how much to give and to protect and how much not to. I think it's a real tough balance.
How do you empower your child to self-advocate?
Well, I think it starts really young, where they have to even learn how to speak to others, to asking for what you want at a restaurant by yourself and not speaking for you. To me, that's a very important first start. Being able, if you have a problem, to speak up to whoever it is instead of me intervening. So it's little things like that. So stepping back and having you take responsibility. I think learning responsibility young is a way to build your self-confidence, learning how to speak for yourself.
Yeah. When I graduated from high school, they said, what was or college maybe, there was a motto that the speaker gave, and then they asked us, what would the motto be?
It was a phrase that the parent always said that was important to them, that stayed with them all the time.
Yeah.
What was my motto that you always had with you? And you said, deal with it.
Deal with it.
And I went, oh. Is that really all I did to tell you that's the most important thing? And you said, yeah. And it's true, I do. When something comes up, I don't want to have to deal with it for you. I think it's important you learn to deal with it yourself. So deal with it, yes.
Well, it's so interesting because in a medical context, that is hugely problematic for a lot of women and people with vaginas these days, right? Because the toughness conflicts with, potentially undermining our own experience. So how do you distinguish between dealing with it and self-advocating?
Well, because I think you try to deal with things yourself first. And if it doesn't work, self-advocating means you have to go to someone else to find an answer. So I think that they're connected. I think it's really important that you have to acknowledge in yourself what's going on and try to figure out a way to take care of it. If you can't, if it's still a problem, then you seek help. But it starts with self-awareness, and dealing with it, dealing with things, helps you to learn to recognize that we're not all perfect and that there are things that are going to go wrong, and accept them for who you are. It's a problem. All right, I have a problem.
Well, I mean, it's like the two sides of the same coin. It's kind of knowing and accepting that there's something that is a certain way, and then there's taking action with it.
Exactly.
So it's not blaming oneself.
Correct. Correct. No, absolutely. Myself.
So I'm curious to hear from you, because we never talked. We had like a very open dialogue family. Which, like, Pretty Woman was a family movie for us. My understanding as a child of Julia Roberts is that she was a struggling woman who just didn't know who she was, and people were mean to her. And she slowly discovered her confidence and took initiative and became this powerful, respected woman.
Right.
And she did that for herself.
Mm-hmm.
That was what Pretty Woman was to me. anyways, going back to this, the dialogue that we did have and the dialogue that we didn't have. How have you experienced, me coming up with a product where I couldn't self-advocate for a really long time, and then did self-advocate?
Yeah. You did at one point tell me that there was a problem. You had a relationship with somebody, and you told me that, yes, you did, that his size was rather large, and you were having trouble with that it hurt.
That was my understanding of the problem at the time. Yeah, because I didn't understand human anatomy.
Right. So we talked about it a little bit. I suggested a couple of positions.
You did?
I did. I didn't know this was, I never had the problem, so I assumed that I didn't know that there was such a thing as that problem, because it was a while ago. But when you started with the product and you were upfront about it, I hope that I was supportive.
What resonates with me is that you did raise me in a very open, we didn't talk explicitly about our sexual experiences, although apparently we did
That one time.
You did obviously teach me to advocate for myself, but it just goes to show how we're so conditioned to, especially when it comes to sex and sexuality and female anatomy and vaginas, that is something to be ashamed of, embarrassed about, and to trust in these institutions that maybe aren't equipped to actually help. So the fact that I wasn't able to help myself for 10 years doesn't speak necessarily to my ability to self-advocate. It speaks more so to the ability to the culturalization that I almost felt victim to, because it was about sex, and I couldn't, I tried to seek help and then I couldn't, and I am not being articulate right now. That didn't come out right.
Well, it's a hard topic to talk about. And I'm not so sure you weren't sure why you didn't. It's something that we all go through, and if something is difficult, it's difficult to be able to put it into words and to share that with other people. We just assume it's our own difficulty and just deal with it.
Yeah.
Problem.
Yeah. I will say though, every time I was sick, I had to convince you that I was sick because you never believed me.
Well, you didn't. It wasn't bad. I guess it was a degree of sick. Sometimes.
Yes, it's always a spectrum. It's not black and white, Mom.
I'm sorry, dear.
I will say, I think because I take pride in being tough. I take pride in having a high pain threshold, and going to work when I'm sick, or not complaining. Whining. We were not whining children. There was no whining in this household. I have currently have mastitis, and I had a fever 2 nights ago, and I was throwing up, and when you're that sick, all you want is your mom. It's the only time that you can unabashedly just curl up, and you're giving me affection and I'm taking it, and you just to have, there are those moments when we are totally lost and scared, and all we want is our mom.
Right. Which is why I leaned on you when my mom was dying.
Yeah. Man. Yeah. Which is why I guess I told you when sex was painful. Is there anything that you do differently if you parented a child again? Did you fuck me up in any way that you would want to do differently?
Oh, I don't know. I think each child you get smarter with each one. I parented you differently than I did Jonathan in many regards, but you are also very different people.
Right.
So I think it depends on the child's personality, the type of person they are. I think it depends on your experience, how worldly you have become as a parent, and it's a lot of years, and I would certainly not have the energy to have another child.
Grandchildren.
It would be a major miracle, right? But yeah, with grandchildren. But then I also have to realize that I'm not the mother, I'm the grandmother. And so I also have to give you that chance to, again, make your mistakes and figure it out, deal with it.
Jesus.
There you go. You've got
I don't know if you can say that anymore.
Yeah, you have to. Because I'm not there to take care of them. So you have to, it's got to be your judgment call, not mine.
I need you to live forever. You and I had a conversation really recently that was really important to me because I was having body issues during pregnancy, and there were moments of conflict where you were using language that didn't sit well with me, and it was actually triggering for me in a way that I needed to confront with you before it affected our relationship. And I remember talking to you on the phone, and I said calmly to you that this is how I felt when this was said. And you recognized that, obviously it wasn't your intention to hurt me. And what you said so beautifully was that when two people are so close, sometimes you say things that might hurt the other person. But then the outcome is that you talk about it.
And sometimes what somebody says is not how you receive it, or how one person receives it is not how the other person intended it. And it becomes that miscommunication. And if you don't talk it through and you just hold a grudge, it was never meant to be anything that was hurtful at all.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
It is, it's so hard when so much, and I know this in a relationship with mother-daughter, in a relationship with person-to-person, so much of my self-esteem and identity is wrapped up in how I think you feel about me and how I feel about you. And if there's tension there, then who am I? I lose that completely. Or if there's a problem that's not addressed, that just becomes this growing bundle of negativity. What scares you most about motherhood? It's almost it's kind of the dark room when you're afraid of dark room and you turn the lights on and you're like, oh, that's not so scary anymore. Communication is that light switch. And when you
and feeling confident is that light switch.
Yeah.
And knowing that other people have those same issues. So there's been some times when you were not sure what to do, and you called up your girlfriends who had babies.
Oh, I called you.
You called me as well. You call me as well, but sometimes it's good to call a girlfriend too. And what did you do in this situation? Even what kind of equipment is good? What do I, how do I do this?
Yeah. It's fun. It's almost like you have to, the scariest part about motherhood is probably just accepting that you're going to be bad at it forever.
Exactly. Not forever. But there will always be something you're bad at.
There will always be something about it. There's a learning curve throughout the whole thing, for sure.
There is. Constant. And when you think you got it right, there's something else that pops up.
Yeah.
It's another stage of development. It's, you think you get the sleeping down and then a tooth starts to come in.
Right.
And it goes down the tubes again.
Yeah. I think one of the things I am scared of, there's like the moving forward, like how do we grow together and how do I not mess this kid up for the future? And then there's the like, what if it all ended right now? Like, what if? There's like the what if something tragic happened.
Sure.
And I think that goes back to the story about like, is there ever a moment, like, do you deeply know how much I love you? Like, I want this child to always know how much I love him. And even if I don't feel it, even if he just cries all the time, he just,
He'll know.
Like, how can we just accept the things, that we can't change and be willing to learn and look at our shit. And listen, when I packed to come home for this weekend, I had to be the one to get up early and pack before everyone else and make sure everything was lined up and the packing list was ready and breakfast was there. And, I used to be the kid in that situation where all I had to do was get myself ready and you would do all that shit. And one of my goals for myself is to be organized and to prepare in advance, and now I have to do that. I've become the parent, so that other people can be free to figure out their bullshit.
That's exactly what happened.
Including my partner. It's interesting to feel like I've had to, the constraints of having a baby in my life has forced me to get over the emotional hurdle of not being a kid anymore.
And that's why there's a level of us that are now peers. Mm-hmm.
Kind of sucks. I want to be a kid forever. I want you to take care of me forever.
Sorry, love.
Oh.
And someday you'll be a grandmother and you'll feel that, you know?
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing. That's the thing. You watch all the milestones happen, and each one you celebrate, from the first lost tooth to, graduations and everything else, all the sports and awards and things of that nature. But the ultimate goal is to watch your child become a parent.
Really?
Uh-huh.
That's why the human species has made it so far.
That's right.
You're doing it.
I am doing it. All my goals are being achieved. That's right.
How does that feel for you?
It feels great. It feels great. It does. It does. And there's always going to be problems, and listen,
For sure.
I have a rocky road ahead, but it's all good. It's all good. It really is.
Oh,
I love you, Mom.
I love you too.